Hello there. Brussels has ruled out any quick-fire Brexit deal covering financial services, but they do seem keen on doing a quick-fire deal on ensuring their fishermen get to keep catching our fish, don't they? Firstly, as ever, please kick that YouTube algorithm up the backside by giving this video a big fat like. And I'm always uploading new content, so please do check my YouTube channel daily. And I'd just like to thank all those who donate to this channel via PayPal and Patreon, as it helps to keep us going in these difficult times. So, Brussels has said there can be no rapid deal made between the UK and EU concerning the City of London having continued access to the EU single market, until bureaucrats have seen how far the UK will be diverging from EU rules. The UK had wanted to get the financial services part of the deal done by June the 30th to provide the city with stable access to EU markets, basing an equivalence deal on their already identical regulations, but the Express reports that the European Commission's Financial Services Chief Valdis Dombrovskis warned Chancellor Rishi Sunak the bloc would wait until it sees how far Britain breaks away from the EU's rules and regulations before making any decision. And this is, of course, all part of the stringing things out to try and force a Brexit implementation period extension, without the EU being the ones seen to be asking for it. Hurdles and obstacles in most aspects of the deal will be put in our way by the EU as the June deadline approaches, as any decision to extend the process by either 1 or 2 years beyond the current date of December the 31st must be taken jointly by the EU and UK before the end of June. And there are, as expected, increasing calls for the UK to change its unilateral law against extending and, given the global situation, get on with negotiating an extension with the EU right now. A few days ago, Labour MP David Lammy tweeted, "The government can't negotiate the future of Britain's trade with the EU in a few months. Boris Johnson needs to swallow his pride and put the national interest first. That means agreeing an extension with the EU." While one trade expert, David Hennig, told The Guardian, "I don't see how you can realistically, by the end of June, make a decision on how trade talks are going. You would be doing it with a lot of people under pressure, dealing with something that really is an arbitrary deadline. This is the classic force majeure cause, an unforeseen circumstance of the extreme degree." And Matthew O'Toole, a former advisor to Theresa May, who is now an SDLP politician in Northern Ireland's Assembly, tweeted, "Right now I'm loath to even mention Brexit, but as of today the UK government is still ruling out extending transition. That is lunatic. The world will soon be recovering from a huge economic shock. No one, not the EU or even Trump's US, will have time for Brexiter fantasies." But to extend, you need one side to come forward and suggest it first. Now that comes down to which side blinks first. And whoever does will then be on the back foot throughout the remainder of the talks. But I do have to say that given what's going on, I think that by the end of this year we might find that a clean break from the EU is the only sensible option left, whatever's on the table. So signing that choice away right now could prove to be a very, very costly mistake. The word reset springs to mind. Now, in yesterday's video, I recounted the story of Boots the chemist being forced to take an alleged shoplifter with a record as long as your arm to court themselves because the police officer that attended wouldn't arrest the perpetrator, but instead told him to go away and not do it again. Well, now another such story has emerged. the Manchester Evening News tells us that her dad had 2 bikes worth in the region of £2,000 stolen from his garden shed. He reported it to the police, who said that there were no leads, so case closed. So the victim spent some time searching around sites like Gumtree and eBay, and eventually found his son's bike listed brazenly right out there publicly for sale. So he went back to the Greater Manchester Police to give them the good news and an instant collar, and got the response that the force didn't have the personnel to deal with it. Once again, no further action. And what do you think the victim was asked? Well, the victim said, the officer even asked why not purchase the bike and pay the thief/handler of stolen goods to get the bike back. So the victim told the police that he'd bid for the bike and go around and confront the vendor, and he asked if an officer could accompany him. No, was the reply. So the victim felt that he had no choice but to go it alone to try and get his property back himself. And that would put him in physical danger. Now, for their part, the police do say that it seems to have been a bit of a communications misfire here, as they claim they told the victim that without more information they could do nothing. And they also say that they told the victim that if he did bid for the bike and managed to get an address, then they could act to try and get it back. But whatever the ins and outs of this, it still sticks in the craw that someone can filch your property, then hang it out for all to see on a bidding site, knowing that there's virtually no chance of anything stopping them pocketing a nice, fat, unearned profit. Isn't this just a sign of how comfortable thieves must feel these days in taking what they want when they want? How long before you get burgled and the burglar returns to your house the next day, knocks on the door and politely offers to sell the stuff back to you? Maybe these bidding sites are the bit of the web that the police need to be looking more closely at, and not harrying comments on Twitter and Facebook. Now, on to political donations. Now, I have no issue with people giving politicians and their parties donations, but as far as I'm concerned, they should be very transparent so that we can see exactly where the money's coming from. Otherwise, there will be a perception of cronyism and political chicanery, or real cronyism and political chicanery. So I take it as good news that the Times has named a judge, Robert Latham, as the donor back in January of £100,000 into the coffers of Labour Party leadership contender Sir Keir Starmer, and both lawyers are listed as associate tenants on the books of the Doughty Street Chambers in London, which of course may well be unconnected. Now, 100 grand is very big bucks in the circles I frequent, and many people might get a bit hot under the collar about this, especially as a judge donated the dosh. But we need people to donate towards political parties, and we need people to donate towards the people they think they would like to see as leader. So I have no real issue with it. But what we do need is rules applicable to all political parties that say that all donations must be declared, and that all those over a certain value being made public prior to the ballot papers being issued. That way, every voter knows exactly who got what and from where. After all, I wonder how many Labour leadership election voters will look slightly askance at this one. And can you imagine the outcry if this was the Tory party we were talking about here? And another Labour leadership hopeful, Lisa Nandy, showed us all yesterday what she has learned from the drubbing her party got at the general election back in December. And what has she learned? The answer is zero, niets, nada, the square root of FA, as far as the subject of freedom of movement is concerned. Nandi appeared on the Ma Show yesterday and basically said she was a great believer in the freedom of movement. So a Labour Party under her leadership would be about as interested in what the electorate think about open borders as Lily Allen is interested in not talking absolute. How's that for a double-digit salute to the working classes up and down the country who voted to leave the EU because of their legitimate concerns over the adverse effects that freedom of movement had had on their local economies, jobs and levels of crime? I don't think she's quite thought this one through. Do you? So we've got 3 Labour leadership contenders still in the race. And one of them, Rebecca Long-Bailey, thinks the people are too thick to understand Labour Party policies. Another one thinks that ramming an unwanted open borders policy down our throats is a great idea. And the third has access to rich people's donations. Oh dear, that does not bode well for them, does it? But there is one silver lining for them. The electoral test of the local government elections has been put off for a year, so no need for Labour to say anything sensible before this coming May. But that just means another irritating year of pontificating Sadiq Khan. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it. So what do you think about all of this? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.